Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Today, I want to really answer the question, do you have what it takes to become a consultant? Maybe you're on the verge of potentially thinking about quitting your job and doing this whole independent consulting thing, or maybe you spoke to other people who have done this and you're just like, this would be amazing for me, especially given the climate we're in right now. Now, sometimes when you see these individuals doing stuff, you may be thinking, oh, maybe they got a certain MBA, or maybe they're LinkedIn famous, or potentially they've been doing X amount of stuff for years, or whatever it may be. And in some ways, I want to flip that on its head because do you fit those different markers that potentially you're setting the standard to be? So I want to flip that on its head and really give you at least 5 key things to consider or think about to see if you are consultant ready, so to speak. And just to be clear, as a caveat, I'm not talking about firm consulting, I'm talking about independent consulting, okay? So the first sign, I've got my notes here as per usual, is you think in solutions and not just tasks. So the really big thing to notice here is that you're not there to just tick boxes. When I talk about consulting, or when I talk about the consultant mindset, I'm talking about this whole idea of being a strategist, but not just a strategist, one that is able to solve specific problems for a group of people, a certain type of client using certain approaches. These may be frameworks, methodologies, or whatever it may be. So when I first came into this whole space, okay, so I started contracting first inside of IR35. My sort of background within ANHS helped. My sort of I'm going to say vocational studies helped. I was versed in something called managing successful programs, which meant that I had a good idea of how the government, public sector, or the NHS runs certain programs. There's a certain protocol or methodology that they utilize. So that was kind of my edge. But I quickly realized that whether I knew that stuff or not, you had to use problem solving skills. So your ability to solve effective problems is more key than necessarily just following a set of tasks or set of standards or whatever it may be. So you have to think to yourself, are you somebody who thinks on their feet? Are you somebody who analyzes situations and can provide insight, but also has oversight in terms of how they can approach different things? I'm telling you, when it comes to your end client, okay, they're looking for somebody who can help them solve big problems. So yes, there are certain key skills and methods and all this stuff that are identifiers, but the reality is, are you the sort of person who is able to get stuck in anyway? So the question that you kind of want to answer is, are you somebody who people come to for help? Are you a solution finder? Where did I get that word from? My old manager used to call me that. He was like, Michael, do you know what you are? I was like, what am I? You're a solution finder. I was like, what's that? Somebody who finds solutions. Is in the title. And so if you're somebody who is able to find solutions and can fix things and you have a certain instinctiveness to you, then consulting will be fine for you. Okay. But being solution focused isn't the first piece. So there's another trait that you need to think about. And it's one that usually separates employees from other consultants as well. So the second thing I want to talk to is, are you comfortable with ambiguity? This is a big one. When I did my coach training qualification, or whatever you want to call it, I was taught that there is this level of ambiguity and complexity that you're just going to have to deal with in organizations. Why? Because we're going through a situation where we're going through a lot of change. Look at the tariff situation right now. Look at stocks and trades and all that kind of stuff there. Look at the value of the US dollar. Look at things that are happening in the Middle East and the 30 other wars that are happening across the world. Look at Russia and Ukraine. I know it's gone a bit quiet, but these things are still happening. Look at the bond market. Look at COVID that happened a couple of years. There are so many things that have happened. And so it's meant that everything's not necessarily going to be clear. Everything's not going to require a straightforward solution, so to speak. And so if you are comfortable sitting in a certain level of ambiguity, then you will go far. Because as a consultant, sometimes you sit in the vague. You're not going to know all the answers, but you have to come with a certain level of confidence. And where does that confidence come from? The fact that you have solved problems you didn't know the answer to before. That's where the confidence comes from. The confidence comes from the fact that you've spent X amount of years previously doing what you do best, whatever that looks like. Whether this specific contract that you're doing relates to that or not. The confidence comes from you believe in you and your ability to manage the situation. There's something known as the locus of control. And so there's the area that you can control. There's your area of influence, and there are things you just can't control. And that's where we get anxiety and fear. We want to be within a space where we can control things or create influence. And so this is where we have the right level of support and the right level of challenge in order for us to grow into that space. So you have to be able to ask good questions, and you have to be able to listen intently so that you can do the right sort of analysis. What sort of analysis are we looking at? Data analysis is going to be very important. There's also going to be primary research, so to speak. So speaking to people within the space and understanding specifically what their fears are, what they've done before, what they think should work, any other stakeholders you can talk to. You're also going to want to look at frameworks and methodologies. You're going to want to plan potentially each day or each week. These are ways in which you can manage and deal with these things. You want to develop leadership skills so that you know how to manage people the right way. And when I say manage people, I'm not saying necessarily managing a team. What I'm talking about is knowing how to communicate, because communication is going to be big in this. I remember when I was working for a government department, it was during the COVID pandemic, and we had a situation where there were 23 firm consultants who had been in this team for more than 6 months or so, and they literally just left on the Friday, whatever Friday that was during the summer. And it's not because they decided to leave, it's because for whatever reason, the procurement channels that usually, gave them the money to do what they're doing wasn't renewed. And so there was only me left. There was a permanent member of staff, the only permanent member of staff, and 5 new permanent members of staff. So I was the only independent consultant or contractor at the time. And so the director wasn't around. They had a 3-week holiday. And we had just had an outbreak in the north for a certain strain of COVID. So the logistics were mad. I was within the logistics area. What did I do? Well, the first week I had some crazy nights. But I had a duty because there were new members of staff who had been brought in, and I wanted to make sure that they were comfortable. I wasn't even thinking about myself. Yes, I was tired. Yes, I was strained. All of that kind of stuff there. But those late nights, especially working with that permanent member of staff who was in exactly the same situation as me, we devised a plan. Okay? We devised a plan. We made sure that we had a daily sort of like rhythm. Once you have that daily rhythm, then you can outline, okay, what are the priorities for the day? What are the next actions or next steps, and any other key updates? That's just an example. It's never going to necessarily be that extreme, but sometimes all you have is each day. So you have to be able to put in mass input at the beginning so that the next couple of weeks are easier. And so week 2 and week 3 weren't as crazy. So bear this stuff in mind. So hopefully you're still with me. And I really want to get stuck into the next one because I want to be able to give you an idea of potentially what you're missing. But before I get into that, there is a tool that I've put together. It's a survey, okay, or a quiz or whatever you want to call it. And it's called the Independent Consultant Readiness Self-Assessment. And essentially it's going to ask you a set of questions, take 5 minutes or so. And it will help you understand whether you are contractor or consultant ready or not. So if this is something you're interested in, then feel free to click on the link below. It's in its beta, or is it beta versions? Yeah, it's in its early stage versions at the moment. So apologies if it's a bit buggy or whatever it may be, but check it out and hopefully it gives you some insight. So the third sign is you can package and articulate your expertise. Okay. So you may be really good at what you're doing. Okay. Maybe you've had 5 years at doing it, 10 years at doing it, 20 years at doing it. But in reality, can you articulate and package what you do? So that's something you need to think about. I help whom? Who do you help? Okay, I help X do Y. That is the fundamental formula. And I do this by doing d, and d. Simple as that. Then you talk about the result that you achieve for people. So maybe it is, I help NHS departments improve their digital transformation capabilities and help them become more efficient and lead with confidence. I just made that up, and you could tell I made that up, obviously. But the point being made is that you've got the clear sort of like audience that you're serving. So this is NHS departments, or maybe more specifically, you can talk to program directors or operation directors or whatever it may be. And then you talk about the change that you insinuate. Okay, so digital transformation, that is the specialism, that is the thing. And then you talk about some of the benefits. So some of the benefits being become more efficient, lead with more confidence, whatever that looks like. Okay. And you have to practice this stuff. You have to practice your pitch more so that you can talk about it with confidence. This is why I talk about PAR. Okay, go watch my video based on how you can improve your CV and stuff, because it utilizes this model PAR, which stands for problem, action, and result. I've said this so many times again and again and again, and I'm going to keep on saying it because articulation of your values, not of your values, sorry, I like saying that a lot. Values are the things you deem as important, but articulation of what you're good at is really important. So you'll realize in this business world, okay, it's not necessarily what you do, it's how you package yourself. It's the package. So I could talk about branding and all of this kind of stuff there and all that kind of jazz. But the reality is there's no point. It starts with how you articulate your experience and your value. So I want to get on to the next one. And with this next one, this really sort of like leans into this whole idea of your ability to have autonomy. I mention this all the time. So I talk about Daniel H. Pink's book, Drive. And he talks about purpose, autonomy, and a sense of mastery. Autonomy is that sense of having the freedom to do what needs to be done. It's using your initiative. It's making certain key decisions for yourself. It's positioning yourself a certain way. And so consultants are self-led. They manage their own timelines, their own deliverables, and their results. Of course, these are agreed by contract with the end client, but these are some of the things that they do themselves. So you may feel like you have a consultant mindset or consultant spirit already. I know when I was previously working, a 9 to 5 in the NHS, I had this feeling that I was more consultant-esque than just somebody who was clocking in and clocking out. Of course, I was doing that to a degree, and everyone does that to a degree. But I just felt like I was ready to ask for forgiveness later. I was ready to be quite inquisitive by nature. I was ready to take on new projects. I was asking a lot of questions, trying to get them solved, speaking to loads of different types of people. You probably do this yourself. And if you don't, that's okay. That's also okay. But this is just another sign that there is a certain level of autonomy that you may have or may want or may desire, or may seek, that is given to you when you are within this consultant space. So think to yourself, is this something that you want? Or do you want someone to tell you exactly what to do? And if that's the case, that's okay. Like, there's no right or wrong. But this video is for individuals who want to, or who want to understand whether they are consultant ready or not. So hopefully this has given you some clear understanding, but we're not finished yet. We've got at least one more to go. The final one, and I kind of highlighted this before, is that you are the go-to person. You're the go-to person. Why is this important? Well, think about it like this. If you are the go-to person, that is the market, i.e. your community, i.e. your group, i.e. your workplace, stating that you're reliable, you're dependable, you're somebody who can get things done, you're that solution finder. So maybe in some ways you're unofficially a consultant, so to speak. And this is why I talk about the consultant mindset. You can still be a consultant-esque individual in your permanent role. Of course you can. That's where you develop the skills. And this is why I say consulting or even contracting is basically a precursor to entrepreneurship, if this is something that you're looking to do. And so the way you know this is based on how many people ask you for things, how many people you depend on, how tired you feel as well. Are you a go-to person, not just in what, just in your life? I know for me that I'm definitely that person. I was having this conversation with my mother and sister the other day. And so this is a big one. If you're a go-to person, you're definitely somebody who can start this whole thing of consulting. So hopefully this has given you some insights. And let me just quickly recap, and I've got sort of like the list here. The first one is, number one, you think in solutions and you don't just do tasks. The second one is you're comfortable with ambiguity, and not just ambiguity, complexity, but you remember that focusing on what you can control is more important than trying to control everything. The third thing is you know how to package and articulate your expertise. PAR, problem, action, result. Know what problem you're solving, what actions you take aligned to a methodology, and what results you create that is tangible, percentages, money, savings, customer experience, all of that kind of stuff there. The fourth thing is that you prefer autonomy over supervision, because you know that if you were left to your own devices, you'll get it done. It's that simple. So having that sense of autonomy is key. And finally, you're the go-to person. People come to you for clarification. You're an unofficial leader, so to speak. You get things done. So really, really key things. So, don't assume that consulting is just for the MBA grad or for the exec or for the retired, operations person or whatever it may be. I never did an MBA. Yes, I have a degree in medical biochemistry, totally different to all of that stuff. I don't have a master's. I don't have a PhD. My experience was built in the NHS, doing commissioning, some project management, implementation work, all of that kind of stuff there. But I wasn't called a project manager, so to speak. And I end up being a program management consultant. There is a way to navigate it. Not everyone's going to have the same story as me, but I want to highlight to you that you don't necessarily have to go down a specific route per se. You may have the traits already. So if you follow those different things, it may give you an idea, that you are actually consultant ready. Now, what one thing will I say makes you not ready at all? I would say, well, to be honest with you, if you are not willing to bet on yourself, then you're not ready to be a consultant. It's that simple. You're not ready. The reason I say that is because you are finding your own work. You are depending on you. You're not relying on any other benefits. You are your own financial manager. So you're relying on you to do a lot of things. Yes, you may have extended help in the form of professionals helping you with stuff, whether this is a virtual assistant, whether this is an accountant, whether this is, something else. The point being made is betting on you is the most important thing that you can do in this space. And so throughout this whole journey, it is not just about, money and freedom and all that kind of stuff there. This is also a personal development journey also. So hopefully this has helped you. If you want to get more insights to understanding whether you are consultant ready or not, feel free to check out that assessment that I spoke about, which is really a consultant readiness assessment to see if you are best fit. And of course, if you've got any questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the comments below. If you want to see more videos centered around portfolio careers, consulting and contracting, then don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.